On What's Brewing Today, actor and climate advocate Bhumi Pednekar is now turning purpose into enterprise. Teaming up with her sister Samiksha Pednekar, the duo has launched Backbay, a conscious, design-forward beverage brand that claims it's reimagining the way India hydrates. And to tell us more about the brand, the vision forward, joining me now are Bhumi Pednekar and Samiksha Pednekar, the founders themselves. Thank you so much for joining us on CNBC TV 18. Bhumi, let me start with you. You've been an advocate for sustainability for almost a decade now.
Yes.
What led you to take the entrepreneurial leap into this space especially, and the Indian hydration market? What is the gap that you're trying to fill?
To answer the first part of your question, I think I always had an entrepreneurial side to me. You know, This is something that my mom keeps telling Samiksha and I, that even when we were children, we were constantly like, okay, how can we make a scrapbook and sell it to our neighbors and get that 10 rupees, you know? So we always had it in us. We had various discussions growing up that, okay, apart from our personal goals, for the first part of our lives, for me, which was acting, for her, it was her law, which she loved.
Yeah.
Starting something together, entering the world of business, something that kind of can outlive us, apart from whatever we do individually as well. In many ways, kind of leaving our legacy behind, was always in our bucket list.
Samiksha, let me come to you. From practicing law to launching a beverage brand, how is it different? Tell us what Backbay offers and how is it different in this crowded space that we have today?
Yeah. There came a point in my life where I was like, okay, now if I continue doing law, I will always do law. So that's how the jump happened, and we wanted to give people a better option, a better choice, so they can consume safer and consume better. We are not a water brand, we are a beverage brand, and that's how I think the germ of Backbay started.
Speaking of making consumers doing something that's safer, let's talk about your facility. I think your water is sourced from the Himalayan springs, bottled at a women-led facility in Himachal Pradesh. Talk to us about the facility. Is it contract-based? Do you own the facility? And what are the capacities that we're talking about?
Well, it is our own facility. We have put up our own plant, and we are very, very proud of it. And as you rightly said, our workforce is led by women, because that's just the kind of value system we wanted to inculcate within our brand. Our capacity is 45,000 boxes a day.
A day?
A day. We have a large capacity, and we primarily decided to put in our own factories because we wanted quality control.
Yes.
We also wanted to scale with the way our consumers are adapting to our brand. We wanted to evolve with them. And thus we wanted complete control, because as Samiksha rightly said, the essence of Backbay, the value system of Backbay is that it's better for you, it's better for the planet. And for us to be able to do that, we wanted complete control, and thus we made the brave choice of putting our own.
I know, that's a mammoth task that you've taken to
100%, 100%. Like, our journey started 2 years ago, and over the last 2 years, it's been a great learning to us. Every aspect of it, from ideation to what our core values should be, to the design. As you rightly said in your introduction, we are a design first brand, which I feel is very, very important. And we just didn't want to be a brand that looks good and promises nothing. For us, quality is first.
Okay, so why the name Backbay, and who thought of it?
So I will share the story. We were going through a book, and it's an old book of Bombay, and there was the map of Bombay in the
1857.
Okay.
And we saw the term Backbay there, and I loved how I obviously Google mapped it immediately, and it's still called Backbay. So I loved how it was so rooted in Bombay's history, and it's still a part of it, and I feel like that's what the city is for us, right? It's our foundation, it's our home. We love the spirit of the city, and that's what the spirit of the brand is. We are ever changing, we are growing, we are fast, and we are here for you. No matter who you are, what you do, we are going to be here for you. And that's what I feel Bombay means to us, and that's what we wanted to give to the world at large.
Also, our dream with Backbay is that we want to create a lifestyle beverage brand. And thus the name Backbay kind of just fit in there. The moment she called me, I was traveling for shoot. She's like, Backbay. I said, Backbay. I said, let's go.
Wow. That's a pretty interesting story. I have to give you that. But let's come back to the brand. You've launched with 2 SKUs.
Yes.
What is the pricing strategy? How have you priced it?
We do realize that India is a price-sensitive market. Thus, for us, we have strategically placed our price right between plastic and glass. So if you look at the most expensive plastic variant available in the market, be it imported or domestic, plastic. And the least expensive glass variant available in the market, we are right there because we also wanted our product to be accessible. Look, we are a premium water brand.
Correct. There are two SKUs, like we just mentioned. There's a 500 and 700 ml
Yes,
bottle.
750.
750.
Yeah.
And when can consumers start buying it? How soon are you available?
Actually, we are already available in stores, but like a proper launch is going to happen when your interview would be out.
You know, you've opted for plant-based cartons over traditional packaging. Environmentally conscious, but potentially a costlier choice. How do you plan to balance sustainability and scalability?
So our packaging specifically is called gable top paper packaging. In fact, we've also gone a step further, and our cap is actually a bio cap.
And we are the only company in India currently offering that.
You know, because the story of toxic chemicals leaching into our water, into our beverages is where the germination of Backbay actually happened. And that's why we wanted to go that extra step and make sure that we are giving our consumer authenticity, honesty, and transparency. But coming back to scalability, 100%. Look, the Indian market is already used to paper packaging, right? Just not for water. And we obviously have gone for like the best quality available there because we put our carton through heat tests, through various tests actually, just to make sure that the claims we make are completely supported.
There is intense competition, not just from homegrown players, there are global players as well. How do you plan to really carve out a niche for yourself?
I think a lot of it has to do with us just not being a water brand. You know, at the start of the interview, Samiksha very correctly said that we are a beverage brand and we are trying to build a community of like-minded people. We want to build a community of consumers that have complete trust in us, that whatever comes out of Backbay is going to be better than anything else available in the market. And that's the only way to be. And, you know, especially when you are on the path of sustainability, you know, we aren't a company that greenwashes. And that's why for us, as I even mentioned earlier, quality over anything else.
Okay, so like you mentioned, it's a beverage brand. What more can we expect? You've come out with Backbay Aqua, which is of course the water brand. What else is in the offline? If you can give us a little sneak peek into what you're working towards.
Well, we have I mean, I'm just like
let it out. Let it out.
We have 2 more product lines in R&D and shelf life testing already. We want to take over the beverage space completely, primarily with the lens of health and well-being. You know, because that is the core of what Backbay is. You know, also kind of a thought. I'm going to go back to your previous question as well, where competition is concerned, right? Most of our competition is offering different kind of packaging. And we saw a problem in that packaging, and that's why Backbay was born.
Also the formulations, right? We want to make sure our formulations are clean. Obviously not in terms of water, but in terms of the lines.
Everything else that we have.
Which we didn't see in the market. There's truly a dearth of clean formulations in the beverage space, and that is where Backbay is going to sort of champion.
We don't want to give nasties. We don't want to give like any of the chemical filled alternatives available.
Sugar.
And tons of it, right?
Everything in the beverage.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Has sugar in it.
And hydration is a part of your daily being on an hourly level. You know, so how do we make that experience better for you? Backbay is a very experience-led brand.
Okay, so you know that brings me to my next question. You said you want to take over the beverage space completely, right? While you're not giving much as to what you're working on, but having said that, you know, you're an actor, you're a lawyer. What about who have you partnered with? I want to understand, because this is a space, like you said, owning your own manufacturing facility, getting worked for 2 years before launching this brand. Who have you partnered with, and how does it come naturally to you guys, or what is the story behind that?
We partnered with each other.
That's all.
And we just started on this journey, and there was tons and tons of education, gaining knowledge, understanding operations, the business side of it, numbers.
So who's the number crunching one, and who's the one who's more on the creative side of it?
I would say that I think we both do a bit of both. But primarily, Bhumi is definitely more brand-led in terms of she looks at the longer vision for the brand. She's like, okay, this is where we want to go. This is what Backbay has to be 10 years, 15 years down the line. I'm more of like the day-to-day thing, you know. Okay, now this.
Operations.
Samiksha helps the
Operations.
operations. She's being very like conservative
operations.
about it. She helps the operations through and through. We obviously have a great team working with us. I can't negate that, but that has also been like rather recent. You know, so from closing distributors to our contracts to everything has been us, and it's been a lot of work. I wouldn't lie, but look, we are made of hustle.
Yes.
Right? If you look at our individual journeys, also we don't come from backgrounds that supported anything where we've reached. In my capacity of an actor, her capacity of a lawyer, and this is the next part of our life where we are hustling, and I think it's going to be like so.
Okay, so let's delve deeper into this partnership. You know, what's it's like building a brand, you know, with sisters together? You know, how do your strengths complement each other, and how do they challenge each other?
I think we're constantly challenging each other. First, let's begin with
but
that.
let's start with the good stuff too.
Okay, let's start with the good stuff.
That is a very good thing. But I feel the one thing which I found having a sister as, I mean, Bhumi as my co-founder is the trust. You know?
Yes.
Because I feel that often when two people who don't know each other very well come together to form something, there can be a sense of like building that trust, right? We've been building it for over 30 years now. So, you know, that's a great starting point. And from there comes the fact that we respect each other's opinions, the fact that we hear each other out. And that has sort of helped us bring Backbay to where it is. Because, you know, like you correctly said that, oh, how have we done this entire thing? You know, from setting up the factory to getting, you know, our operations sorted, is because we heard each other out. It's because, you know, we established that foundation of working together towards everything.
The beauty of also working together is that you don't ever switch off. Right?
Exactly,
Like usually when I come back from work, when we would come back from work, we've switched off. We literally have to kind of today tell each other, okay, we're going to take 5 minutes out. Let's just like take a step back and not discuss Backbay. But we love it. You know, we truly are. I also feel that the similarity between Samiksha and I, apart from the fact that we look similar, as they very rightly says, is that we are extremely driven and we are very hungry. And I think that's why we've been able to do this the way we've been able to do.
And you've invested in it. You don't have an external investor. It's both of you pulled in money.
Self-funded.
Self-funded completely.
My final question before I let you go, looking ahead, what's the big vision for Backbay? You know, of course, you've just launched. Any revenue targets that you've set for yourself, let's say 2 years down the line, 5 years down the line? Are there any global plans as well?
Absolutely. I think the export market is actually going to be very huge for us, and we're extremely excited because we are Himalayan premium water. My water is full of minerals and electrolytes that are naturally occurring, which we already have expansion plans within other markets which are very, very active as we speak. Where the final goal for Backbay is concerned, like one of our short-term goals is we really, really hope that, you know, in the next 4 years, we do hit the 100 crore number. And I think that's the path that we are on.
And in terms of 10 years, 20 years down the line, we want to be in everyone's home.
Well, on that note, it's time for me to wrap up our conversation. Many thanks, Samiksha and Bhumi Pednekar, for your time on Startup Street. Wish you both the very best of luck for all your aggressive growth plans with Backbay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Nasscom's latest report paints a picture of fast growth but somewhat fragile foundations in India's GenAI startup ecosystem. Over the past year, the number of GenAI startups in India has surged 3.7 times to more than 890, with 83% focused on application layer solutions like co-pilots and domain-specific agents. But funding has not really kept pace. GenAI funding in India rose 30% to $990 million, which is just a fraction of the $54 billion that was raised globally. Late-stage capital is scarce, and compute and talent remain major roadblocks. So can this early momentum scale, or are deeper challenges holding India back? Joining us to unpack what's really happening on the ground is Aridni Shah, the co-founder and CEO of Immunito AI, Aqeel Ahmed, the co-founder and COO of EcoRatings. Nasscom's latest report paints a picture of fast growth but somewhat fragile foundations in India's GenAI startup ecosystem. Over the past year, the number of GenAI startups in India has surged 3.7 times to more than 890, with 83% focused on application layer solutions like co-pilots and domain-specific agents. But funding has not really kept pace. GenAI funding in India rose 30% to $990 million, which is just a fraction of the $54 billion that was raised globally. Late-stage capital is scarce, and compute and talent remain major roadblocks. So can this early momentum scale, or are deeper challenges holding India back? Joining us to unpack what's really happening on the ground is Aridni Shah, the co-founder and CEO of Immunito AI, Aqeel Ahmed, the co-founder and COO of EcoRatings, and Sangeeta Gupta, Senior Vice President and Chief Strategy Officer at Nasscom. Sangeeta, Aridni, Aqeel, thanks very much. Welcome, and thank you for being here. Sangeeta, I'll start with you. The idea that 83% of startups in GenAI are focused on application layer tools. Is this a deliberate strategic focus or a constraint which is more shaped by the lack of access to capital and compute?
I would, it's a great question, Ritu, because the debate about where should India focus, is it about models, is it about infrastructure, is it about applications? I think very clearly we are seeing more and more growth in the application space, which is happening due to obviously lack of capital, constraint and compute. But also, I think the opportunities that exist in the application space. We have a thriving SaaS ecosystem. Now companies are building AI applications on top of it. You're seeing many more point solutions come up where India can innovate with application areas. So I would say it may not be the strategic choice, but I think India is thriving based on the opportunity that applications are hosting for us. But I think it doesn't mean we will not do the models. There is some companies that are doing it, and the India AI mission, etc., is supporting the growth of these few companies that are building out models. But I think as a sector that has always not just built for India but built for the world, I think you're seeing more GenAI startups in India that are really leveraging models from across all platforms and building on top of it. So I would say, yes, it's a constrained environment because of capital, but we are making the best out of it.
Well, we're making the best out of it. But Aridni, in a highly regulated sector like healthcare, what does it really take to gain traction today, build GenAI products that meet compliance, that meet auditability and safety needs as well?
Yeah. Hi. First of all, Ritu, thank you for inviting me here. And so one of the very key aspects in healthcare is to ensure the reliability that we're talking about, right? and the compliance, the regulations, all of that is there. So when we started building an Gen AI-based platform to create new drugs, and these are antibody-based drugs, we had to ensure that we put all checks and balances in place. And therefore, what we've done is we have now built an AI platform that is purely only for internal use, while ensuring that every single output from the AI gets tested in the lab first. We go through that journey of all of the experimental validations, and then only once we have some success coming out of it, that is when we then can put it out into the world. So therefore, it's very, very important that we have all of these balances in place. For healthcare, where there's so much regulation, as you rightly pointed out, we cannot have a solution that can be directly accessible to the public. And therefore, we have to do everything that's needed. One of the bigger challenges that we're obviously talking about has been funding for our company as well. Being very, very deep tech, we are both bio and AI. And so funding has been a challenge for us, but we've kind of survived so far, and hopefully we'll get there where we can now start putting our drugs into the world.
Well, speaking of funding, Aqeel, vertical AI specialists getting some of the largest funding rounds in India, and sustainability is also rising as a strategic lens. How have you carved out a credible Gen AI proposition in the ESG space, and is the market really mature enough to value long-term impact over quick demos?
I think I'll treat your question in two parts. The first part being whether there is investment available for ESG Gen AI offerings at all. Luckily for us, over the last 2-3 years, several mid-sized and large investors have got climate tech on their mandates. And what a better offering to bet on than Gen AI for climate tech. So we have actually been able to garner some interest. Specifically, I'm talking about my startup here. And we have been able to raise $2 million over the last 2 years, including grants and cloud credits from cloud hosting providers. So that has been good as a start. But at the same time, to the other part of your question, the patient capital, like Sangeeta was also mentioning, is very hard to come by so far in the Gen AI space because building serious IP requires significant effort, and the investors need to be patient till that process is going on, as during those years, you don't see much revenue coming out of it. And I think the OpenAI example is in front of all of us, when they were silently working for several years before they started making any revenue.
Well, Sangeeta, let me take that forward with you to get a more broader picture on this funding gap that we're seeing. Late-stage capital nearly absent. Is this a risk aversion issue at the moment, or are investors signaling some sort of doubts about the scalability or the defensibility of India's Gen AI startups, you think?
I think it's a combination of a little bit of risk averseness, Ritu, that, while they understand the application space, they understand the opportunity, the competition in the Gen AI startup space or Gen AI solutions is very, very high. So will this startup succeed to the level that they can is an issue. I think the second point is really that unlike consumer tech, where we saw a large flow of capital in India, because India in itself was such a large market, a lot of these application solutions, while being adopted in India, in a limited way also are looking for global markets, right? So it's not, I think India as a market is still not as attractive for many of these vertical or application solutions, where the investor can say, okay, here's the market potential. If it's an agri solution or a healthcare solution, this is the large opportunity. This is how I see investors, how I see enterprises or governments buying it, and hence I will put money in it. So I think the growth of India as a market is also, I think, potentially very, very low. I think the third part I would just say is that it's still early days, right? I mean, ChatGPT and the Gen AI stuff really took off in 2022. This is year 3. So you will potentially see some of the startups scaling from here. But it's a very, very, very fast evolving technology environment, right? So it was about Gen AI last year. It's about agentic AI this year. Something else will come up next year. So I think VCs and investors are also looking to catch up with what's next and where should they be putting their money and not missing out on what's happening. So I think it's something that will change. Hopefully, I think we are very hopeful that with this new RDI fund that the government is talking of, where they're going to put 20,000 crore for a deep tech fund of funds, that can help fill some of this patient capital gap that is being discussed.
Funding is one part of it, but Aridni, great AI talent, that is hard to find. Compute is expensive. How do you build strong tech under these kind of limits? I mean, is partnering the only way out?
Yes, I think early days, especially if we talk about compute, we've been lucky that we've gotten credits to the likes of, I think, about $200,000 in total. And that has really helped us, leverage the credit to be able to build something that is so deep tech, it requires so much compute power, etc. I think access is not really a problem. We do have access to all kinds of, cloud compute that is needed for a company like ours. I think the cost is definitely a bigger factor. And so far, we've been lucky to work on credits. However, yes, going forward, we will need to, kind of now start spending a lot on that. So again, eventually boils down to, how much capital you have accessible in order to go for that compute. When it comes to talent, I think AI talent is there. However, the kind of talent that we need, especially our company, we do generative AI, but we don't do the language models that you see. We do something that's very different, which is called as diffusion. And that talent is definitely scarce in India. So we have been struggling to find. Sorry. Haven't been keeping too well. We have been struggling to find good talent in the diffusion, or let's say the graph neural networks. These are some of the architectures that we use, and that is a talent that is scarce, definitely. So we do struggle there for sure.
Well, Aqeel, let me take that forward with you, because the report also says 58% of GenAI startups in India lack a formal compute strategy, and these costs have overtaken talent as the top scaling challenge. How are early-stage startups managing this, especially, for companies like you, building for thin margin industries?
Yeah, I think this is a great question, and it will continue to remain a challenge for all early-stage companies. What we have done on our part, at least that is working for us right now, is we've divided the cost into fixed and variable. So the fixed costs are the costs associated with building the basic infrastructure using which you can service your customers. And the variable costs are the ones that are recoverable from the customers, because even customers are now more informed and aware of the fact that if there is any custom work done for them, they would need to come up with the cost of compute around that custom work. So that is happening. On the talent side, I want to quickly throw the strategy that our startup has been following. See, we have divided half of our tech team into a lab. So what we do is we take some freshers and then we put them into that lab and we create internal expertise around those topics of GenAI, which we need in order to support our